welcome to this. Well, I was going to say it's a webinar, but actually it's not. We're running it as a meeting, so because we want to do some interesting things with this. So if you're online, please make sure you're on mute, whether you have your camera on or not, that's all good. Kia ora, ko Craig Young toko inga. Craig Young, the CEO of Turns. I'd just like to open with a karakia before we hand over to Vivian. So, oops, it just disappeared. That wasn't clever. Sorry. Okay, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tau, ihi aki ana te āta kura, hi te hi huka, hi hauhu, tihei Māori ora. Get ready for the westerly, be prepared for the southerly. It'll be icy cold inland and icy cold on the shore. May the dawn rise red-tipped on ice on snow and frost. That's our opening karakia for today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our event, and I'm really thrilled to be hosting this today with someone I have a lot of time for and a lot of respect for, and someone who is kindly sharing her knowledge and experience with us today, but also through some of the other mahi that we're doing around Māori Pacific area and engaging with diversity and inclusion in technology. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Vivian, and she'll introduce herself and take you through the session. Kia ora, Vivian.
Kia ora, everyone. All right, I'll just do a quick introduction of myself and then we'll kick right into it. So thank you very much, Craig, for inviting me and for allowing me to share this little presentation that I've made. Ke te noho aho ke roto I te taumarumaru o te pane o mate oho. I sit in the shadow of Mangere Mountain. I tipu mai aho I ngā tahataha o te moana o Manukanuka o Hoturoa. I grow better on the shores of Manukau Harbour. No marehe aho. I'm originally from Malaysia. Ko tamaki makoro te rohe ke te piriti o Mangere aho I noho ana. I'm currently beaming in from Mangere Bridge here in Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland. And ko Vivian Chandra tōku ingoa. My name is Vivian. Thanks everyone for joining me today. I created this presentation as part of an organization I belong to called Kia Haumaru. And it's one that we did, we've been doing personal safety education for almost 30 years here in Aotearoa. And it was really a topic that really struck home with a lot of the kaiako that have been doing some of this work for about 20, 30 years, because it's all very, very new. And I can also see that we've got, ECPAT online here today, and especially, of course, TUAN's members, and it's all very relevant, not just as parents, but just as people that live in the world today. In fact, it was just this morning that I saw, it was a giant article on the spin-off, and I think co-printed on Radio New Zealand. It was talking about scams involving deep fakes with Christopher Luxon. So it's not just about young people, it's for everyone today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully the reason that we changed it at the last minute to a meeting instead of the webinar format is because I want to do some interactive stuff today. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat, and also if when I've got interactive things going on, please take part. It'll just help us kind of move things along a little bit more than just listening to me talk. Cool. So let me just hopefully share the right screen. Cool. So just want to make sure I've got the chat up and everything as well. Now, with deep fakes and pornography and AI, what I thought we'd do is talk about, actually we'll talk about the like what we're going to cover today, but why this is important. So I touched on it already, things like deep fakes and like the advent of artificial intelligence like really infecting all of our lives. It means that being able to critically analyze things has become even more important than it was even just a few years ago. Also, we're looking at things like vulnerability. So some of the young people in our lives might have specific vulnerabilities or marginalizations, and I'll talk a little bit about that at the beginning. But also every single person, well, in our lives, regardless of age, are still developing their critical thinking skills. And especially for our young people, it's important that we teach these topics or discuss these topics with them to safeguard their understanding of reality and what personal safety is in kind of the broader sense of the word. So this is where a lot of this mahi comes from. How we're going to take the next hour to get together is we're going to talk a little bit about pornography, what the nature is and what the impact is. And I'm going to base this on some research that's actually been done here in Aotearoa. Then we'll look at some deepfake technology and implications, so what it actually is. I'm gonna maybe do a little bit of an assumption that as most of you have heard of this through 2ans, that perhaps you already know a little bit more about technology than I would say the general public, with quotation marks there, but I will also go over some 101 stuff and talk a little bit about that. And then we'll talk very quickly about what some legal and ethical considerations are here in Aotearoa. And then we'll go dive into some strategies for discussing these topics with the young people in your life. Cool. So firstly, what we're going to do is I am going to jump on here and I'm going to type into the chat. See if I can do that once again. Actually, I'll do it without just share, just so that makes it a bit easier. We're going to do a little Menti so that then I can share the actual results with you straight away. So I'm going to chuck that into the chat straight away. If you can, grab that link. You might want to do it, just click on it. And then what's going to happen is you should get a screen which gives you the Menti screen, which is just a way to enter your thoughts. So I just want to gather some of the thoughts on here. And then once you've chucked some ideas in there, I'll share the screen as the results start coming out. So yeah, feel free to click on that link in the chat and just chuck in some short answers about what worries do you have about the digital content that your kids or the young people in your life, not necessarily your own children, might encounter. Cool. Cool, they're starting to come up already. So let me just bring up this screen for you, just so we can see what other people are seeing. Cool. You can see there's some there, not understanding real from fake, access is so easy, they're inexperienced, how difficult it is and becoming to determine what is real and what is fake. That's true. We're going to talk a little bit about that, actually, part of today. Not able to differentiate. Yeah, internet is their life, so why should they disbelieve it? That's a really good point. Addiction, screen content. Yep, we're not going to do a lot on screen time today, but definitely a very valid topic. The use of AI to harass and cause harm, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Risk of their first encounter with sexuality being something violent or abusive. Exactly. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between pornography and sex education right at the beginning. Financial sexual extortion, or just financial extortion and total. Cool. After today, what I'll do is I'll also look at sharing. I'll see if I can kind of summarize all the questions up into the notes on the slides here, and then when we send the slides out, you'll be able to see what some of those things are. So, yeah, sex is now the norm. Yep. Cool. Okay, so stop sharing that, and I will go back to my slide deck. Just 1 second. Cool. So that's right. what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of kick us off on a different kind of mood. I'm going to play a little video. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it and everything. And this is a video from the Department of Internal Affairs has created a video called well, it's from a series called Keep It Real. And in fact, at the end, when we talk about some of the resources that you can use to support yourself and other adults that might be supporting young people on their journey, that link is in there as well. But it's just a really short video, just a little bit of fun. So let's have a play.
Hiya, I'm Sue. This is Derek. We're here because your son just looked us up online, you know, to watch us.
Matt! Matt, darling, there's some people here to see you. So he watches you online?
Yeah, you know, on his laptop.
iPad, PlayStation.
His phone, your phone.
Smart TV, projector.
Yeah, anyway, we usually perform for adults, but your son's just a kid. He might not know how relationships actually work. We don't even talk about consent, do we? No, we just get straight to it.
Yeah, and I'd never act like that in real life.
Nah. Hey, Maddie. You right?
Okay, Sandra, stay calm. You know what to do here. All right, Maddie. It sounds like it's time to have a talk about the difference between what you see online and real-life relationships. No judgment.
Many young Kiwis are using porn to learn about sex. Keep it real online. Get help and advice at keepitrealonline.govt.nz.
All right, so we will talk a little bit about pornography, just very little, because that's not what today is about. But just wanted to kind of cover some of the basics here, just so that we are on the same page about what we're going to discuss for the rest of this webinar. So, pornography is defined as explicit material designed to sexually arouse viewers. It is primarily meant to be entertainment. So, having said that, just like any other form of entertainment in the world, so we can think about, say, your Marvel movie, may or may not be legal, may or may not be ethical. So, unlike a movie that, say, is at the movie theaters at some stage or on, you know, popular streaming platforms, the legal part is usually a little bit easier to figure out, right? So the legal part in terms of, say, a big blockbuster movie, usually, in most cases, that particular movie is legal. Well, actually, even with the blockbuster movies, it's a good example, because in certain cases, in, say, blockbuster movies, it might have content that in certain countries is illegal and in other countries it's legal. May or may not be ethical. This is another sort of area that's really interesting, just in terms of pornography as an entertainment source. And because from the beginning of time, things like this have been popular with many different segments of society. The creation of such content may or may not be done in a legal and ethical way. So the actors may or may not have been paid, and, you know, all kinds of things, from the sort of just the area of people putting stuff up that doesn't even belong to them, right down to people being trafficked, and, you know, really horrific kind of the whole spectrum of what ethical means and what legal means. It's really important to remember that it is not the same as sex and relationship education, but it is easily accessible, free, and anonymous. So, having said all those things, let's look at some statistics that cover us in terms of Aotearoa New Zealand. This is from the 2018 Office of Film and Literature Classification Study. It surveyed over 2,014 to 17-year-olds. Really interesting stats come out of here. Yes, in the previous webinar, I had someone ask me, oh, it's from 2018. I haven't seen any newer research, but hopefully some of that will be happening, you know, as we kind of speak. Obviously, we know what happened in 2020. It was just a few years after that. So I'm guessing some of the big research projects have been held up because of that. So a quarter of the young people have seen pornography by the age of 12. And 3/4 by the age of 17. So most of our young people, before they are legally consenting adults here in Aotearoa, has seen pornography. Remember, the age consent here in Aotearoa is 16 and not 18. But it's just really interesting to kind of think about the sort of the ages that people are discovering this kind of stuff. In fact, the average age for the first exposure is 13. What's interesting, though, is 71% of those people asked did not go looking for it by themselves. Saw it by accident, about 37%, and 34% someone else showed it to them. So someone else showed it to them is that really interesting kind of line between, you know, what is ethical and what is legal and what is not. If someone is under the age of consent, that means they're legally not allowed to view pornography. And yet at some stage, someone showed it to them. So if you're crossing that with that average age of first exposure being 13, it really skates into quite dangerous territory and really shows you the difference between what you would consider consensual relationship and sex education that is age appropriate and taught by an educator to someone finding something online like pornography. The other stat that I think is actually, I guess, a little bit more good news than bad news is that young people do believe porn influences their behavior and attitudes. 89%, the majority of all of the kids that were surveyed here, shows that they think that it definitely does influence them. And then when they were asked what kind of influences, 20% of the most common negative influence is that they thought that it gave them false expectations of sex and what is normal, which is, you know, not a terrible stat. The most common positive is that they considered it, 9% of the kids surveyed really considered it an educational or learning tool. So that's also something that's, you know, that might be a little bit more worrying. Some stats when we're talking about some of the kids that may be a tiny bit more marginalized than others. We're talking about non-heterosexual youth, our queer LGBTQIA plus young people, twice as likely to use porn for education. This is a really common stat that's often pulled out, and it's also makes a lot of sense. If you watch even mainstream movies and TV and all of that, queer representation is on the lower side. And then if you think about pornography, the queer representation probably is a little bit more equal, and if not actually overrepresented, just because of the way that pornography is usually put out there in the world. And so being able to find representations of themselves in whatever form makes it a bit easier for them if they're looking at pornography. Disabled youth are more than twice as likely to use porn for stress relief or to help with sleep. So this is a really kind of an interesting sort of a side note fact that shows us that I guess we think in different ways of the ways that we can kind of group our young people, and in some ways there might be entire groups that we're not even thinking about. So moving on from pornography, we're going to talk about deepfakes now, which is really the whole reason of why we're here today. Talking about what a deepfake actually is. So a deepfake is kind of common vernacular for a video, an image, or an audio where a person's likeness is replaced with someone else's using artificial intelligence techniques. Here are 4 articles, and in the slides deck that you get coming out, you'll get links to all 4 of them. They're all real articles. I'm just saying that because given the topic here, you might think I completely made them up. One on the left is a article from Radio New Zealand, and it's telling us the story of how Taylor Swift, international pop superstar, had deepfake pornography made of her and just put out there in the world. Obviously, millions of years later, then there was sparks for new legislation in the countries that were most affected, namely America in that case. Second one along is a really interesting one. So this one's got nothing to do with pornography now. The Ukrainian President I'm not going to pronounce this right, Volodymyr Zelensky. Oh, maybe I did okay. Calling on his soldiers to put down their weapons. Wasn't him. It was a creation from using artificial intelligence. Third one along, we're going to talk a little bit more about later. And it's a real story. This is a screenshot from the New Zealand Herald, but it's a reprint from an Australian paper where an Australian teacher discovered that there were deepfake porn images of her online. What was especially shocking in that case was the photos that were obviously used to do the deepfake were photos that she'd only shared with close friends on her Instagram account, I think it was. And so as a result, it meant that she could actually, using her own powers of deduction, work out who it might be. But it was a really sort of an interesting twist on this, which is why we're going to have a little bit more of a chat about it later. And the last one is super interesting. It is a reporter talking about deepfakes in general, so it's a very interesting article for you to read anyway. But there's one quote in there that I just wanted to kind of bring into your attention, and it's that in the article, the reporter just literally went to the first site they found, I think probably by Googling it, and they were in the NetSafe offices, and they talked to the chief operating officer. And the chief operating officer wearing business attire, they took a photo of her, and it was just a little bit more than a head and shoulders shot, much like an image that you would have as a headshot online. And then when they clicked undress and showed it to her, the quote from her is like, "There I am naked, and honestly, it looks like me." Absolutely, 100%, I would say that's what I look like. It's really scary that, like, you know, you can do this kind of thing so quickly, and obviously you can do it without consent very easily, just with anything that's publicly accessible. So we're thinking about things like not just the damaging reputations, it invades people's privacy. And obviously we're going to talk a lot more about this later, but people that this happens to, or people that see this, may not have the critical skills to discern real from fake content. And in some cases, as you'll see a little bit later on, it's very difficult to tell. It can be used as a tool of cyberbullying or harassment. And of course, this, because it's all out there and a lot more out there these days, it's very misleading. It distorts reality for what is real and what isn't. And then if you throw over this entire idea of cultural attitudes, which in Aotearoa New Zealand is a bigger, I guess, a slightly more important than in some of the other Western countries this is affecting. You know, we have a huge Pacifica population here, and we have kind of a different mix of secular versus very religious people, and all of that makes it really sort of quite a interesting, I guess, melting pot of many different attitudes to what is okay sexual explicit content and what is not, what is okay sexual explicit content to be shared and what is not. So yeah. And then the other thing we're thinking about also is, what is the legal framework? So I've put a big star next to technically legal, mainly because the law just has not been tested yet. So some examples of the law that I've found, these are all from a few blogs that are written by legal professionals, but again, none of it's been actually tested in court. This is what kind of people are speculating based on the current case law and what's happening out there. So the first one is the Harmful Digital Communications Act 2015. It's only been created in 2015. It was amended in 2022. That act there was specifically put together to address how technology can be used to harm others. So the most common reasons for creating that law in 2015 were things like online bullying and this really horrible term, which I don't like to use, but it's what is commonly known as revenge porn. So this idea that a consensually taken photograph of yourself, maybe in an explicit pose or something like that, has been shared with people, and those people have shared it without your consent, and often as a way to, you know, shame you or embarrass you. But according to some of the legal experts so far, deepfakes are not classified as an intimate visual recording because it does not technically include the victim's actual body. So that's one piece of the law that hasn't been tested yet, because in the Harmful Digital Communications Act, they use the phrase intimate visual recording to cover off what is and what is not allowed under the Act. The amendment in 2022 did add this idea of revenge porn, but the proposed amendment to include deepfake pornography in that act was not included at that stage. So this is something that is an ongoing kind of portion of New Zealand law that needs to be looked at. The other way that this could be covered off under law could be under the Films, Videos and Publications Classification Act, 1993, which is also why that previous study that I state was actually from the classifications office, because it's the people that are, or the government department that's most involved with this law. Publication is deemed objectionable and illegal if it involves sex, horror, crime, cruelty, or violence in a way that's injurious to the public good. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Some pornography is illegal and some pornography is legal. You know, and it really depends on the Classifications Act, just really looks at the actual content of it. AI generated or AI modified images following under this category could be illegal, but again, it's not been tested. And there are thoughts globally, actually, that might mean that because it's been created, AI, like it's been created completely without the, like, it's not a real photo or a real video, it may not fall under the act. So again, it's an area of the law that hasn't been tested yet. And then there was a little kind of a nod because one of the examples actually most recently is a lot of faking of politicians and some of our public figures. So the most common one recently, Dylan Reeve has written a whole bunch of stuff on it on the spin-off because Christopher Luxon's likeness has been used to tell people to, I think, invest in Bitcoin and a whole bunch of other things. But however, the Electoral Act, which may cover that, is only valid on polling day or 2 days before. And that's about publishing false statements or interfering or influencing voters. So if Christopher Luxon is telling you to buy Bitcoin, it's not really influencing your vote in any way. So that's not really covered. And also publishing false statements is only relevant on polling day or 2 days before. So these are kind of parts of the law that it may or may not occur under. I think would probably have the best bet. It would be under Harmful Digital Communications Act. So, you know, one of the things I think a lot of people working in this area are trying to get that law amended to really cover this kind of stuff a little bit more explicitly. Okay, so what we're going to do now is jump into a little bit of an exercise. So I'm going to show you in the next 5 slides some images, and we're going to I'm going to put up a poll on your screen when we get to each image, and we're going to do a little poll, and then we'll have a little discussion in the chat why we think these images when I show them to you are real or fake. So there's going to be 5 images, and then I'm going to show you the first image. And then we'll keep it up on the screen while the poll is on. So here it is. These are all from a website that's in Northwestern EDU, Northwestern University in the States. And there's 414 images on here. And it's a way that you can maybe talk about this with your young people. You could flick through it. And in the actual website, there's some people that said there are ways to kind of feedback more rather than just real or fake. There's also a way to feedback why you think it's real or fake. And that's because Northwestern University is trying to, I think Northwestern College is trying to really gauge what people think about these images and why they think they might be real or fake. Oh, so I'll give you all just a few more minutes to have a look at this one. This is just a screenshot from the website. I've not re-edited it or changed it in any way. Oh, real is edging out there. All right. Cool. So especially the people that answered really quickly, maybe you want to check in the chat. Let me know why you think it's real or why you think it's fake. Like in the chat, just maybe have a quick write, you know, I thought it was real because, I thought it was fake because, and then I'll tell you what the answer is in a minute. Or maybe if you can't see it, 58% of you think that it's real and 42% think it's fake. So we're about half here. Oh, Carla thinks it's because the eyes are difficult to see and that AI did that on purpose. The edges of the lady is really crisp. Yep. Gut instinct, Jade thinks reminds me of some other AI generated images. So those 3 obviously going with fake. I thought it was real because I don't see any other distorted images. So I'm guessing, Temu, you mean that the back of it kind of looks like could be real stuff? Awesome. So, for those of you that are wondering, this was a real image. Skin texture. Yeah. I mean, when we say real, of course, and there's nothing in the website that explains whether these have been, you know, what's commonly known as photoshopped or enhanced using common photo enhancing techniques. So I don't know whether that has happened or not. But in this particular case, this is an example of a real life photo. All right, here's another one. There's 5 of these, by the way. We'll try and move through them a little bit quicker. So, check up this one, real or fake? Immediately, we've got lots of people saying, no, it's fake. Not wanting to preempt the thing, but. So, those people that answered super quickly, let me know what you're thinking. I mean, in this case, there's still a background, blurry people in the back there. I think the street does look a little bit clean. But again, that could have been just removed by photo enhancing techniques. 3 people think it's real. It looks like the weird AI generated LinkedIn headshots. It really does. The hair is really neat. Well, kind of. Too perfect. Yeah. This one is fake. So most of us got that one right. Well done. All right. 3rd one. Oh, this is interesting. So real is edging out here. I initially thought this one was fake. I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, but I thought it was fake to begin with. And this is one that's most commonly in the real life humans that I've asked if people thought it was fake. But it's interesting that immediately, I think 6 of you immediately said, hey, it's real. Fake hand is fake. Strange. Yes, John, that is exactly why I thought it looked fake. But I have a theory on that, which her bum is not really sitting on the bed. Yeah, she could be kind of perched right on the edge there, though. I do like that the bed has kind of like, you know, it's like tussled bedding and stuff, which you'd think that maybe AI wouldn't have done. The clash of patterns and textures was real. Yeah, that's color. That's well done. That is exactly what I was trying to say. Terribly. Okay, cool. This one is in fact real. So I also, just like John thought, I thought that hand looks a little bit fake. Like it's just a little bit long. Those fingers look a little bit strange. And I think this is actually a case of a real image that has been manipulated through photo manipulation tools like Photoshop. Maybe in a way to make herself look thinner or something like that, which is a really common way that people would maybe edit photos. And so that's what's caused that hand to go a little bit longer. I really tried really carefully in this one not to change the proportions of the image when I maximize it on the screen. So yeah, I thought the storage containers under the bed. Yeah, that's so true, Jade. I mean, I don't think in any world would an AI randomly decide to put storage containers under the bed. So definitely. All right. I think this might be the last one. I can't remember now. Let's see. So this one here, I thought it was a really pretty photo. And for the person that said the eye thing earlier, I mean, those are quite pretty eyes. Very stark, I think. Oh, the fake is really pushing it out there. So if it's photoshopped in any way, it's not real. It's true, Tina. However, we're trying to say, you know, did the photo come from a real photo, whether it's been completely computer generated? So the way that we talk about AI and deepfake technology is that the image is actually completely created. It hasn't come from, well, I guess, completely created in that it takes a base reference of photos. So there might be a bunch of photos where a woman looks kind of like this woman, and then it's created from there. But you're right, it's that this is what we're talking about, right? There, where is that line? Where do you draw it between what is fake and what is real? Top lip. What do you mean by top lip, Jeff? It's looking a bit weird, or? Shape and texture. Yeah. This one here is indeed fake. Something about the nose and eyebrows. Yeah, I thought the eyebrows were too perfectly manicured. But the fact that there isn't any kind of background or anything, that's usually another giveaway as well. Okay, this is the last one. We've only got one more. So for those people that said the previous one had, you know, the skin texture is too perfect, this woman has a few wrinkles there, a few crow's eyes. Her makeup is immaculate, but of course, you know, you can do that. But more people thinking this one is real. Interesting. Here's a background. It's obviously some kind of weird corridor thing. Okay, we're gonna move on because it's already 1:07. This one was indeed fake. So, as you can see, we're all presumably adults here, and everyone here, we're talking about mostly probably professionals, definitely people with interested young people in our lives, and it was really hard. There was not one image that really had us all going, no, it's this one or that one. And these images were not specifically created to just flick back to the one that's all of them, actually. They weren't actually specifically created to trick people as such, but it's interesting that in this kind of huge mix of photos, you can see that it's quite hard to tell. So this is one way that you can use to kind of think about how to discuss that, starting to think about critical thinking with your young people. And this is actually one that can be done with quite young kids as well, because it's already like having them to, learn how to question things and stuff like that. What I'm going to do now is there's a few different case studies, but because we're meant to finish at 1:30, what I'll do is we'll probably just go through one or two, but I'll break us off into breakout rooms. And I'll just bring it up on the screen first. And then we're gonna have a little chat just for a few minutes. I'll probably give you about 5 minutes in your breakout room, and then we'll discuss the case studies just as a big group and when we come back. So here are some kind of questions that you can think about when you're discussing a case study. So this is something you can do. It's something I've done around the dining table kind of thing with the young people in my life as well. And it's just a way to kind of gauge opinions and ideas, and also to teach different ways of critically thinking about things kind of out loud as a family, or as a group in a trusted, safe environment. I'm going to actually skip past the first one because I want us to get together and talk about the this one here, which is very similar to that real life example that I talked about earlier. So when Hinamoa found photos of her online in pornographic poses, she realized that the images were modified from images only available to her Instagram closed friends list, meaning that the person who did this was on a small list of friends. So for those of us that may not be on Instagram, Instagram is a social media site for sharing images or videos of yourself to your friends or to the public. Most people on Instagram, well, actually, I don't know if it's most or not, but there are two ways that you can share those images. You can either only share it with the people that, so you can have a private account, which means that you only share images to the people that are already linked with you in your friendship group. And within that, again, if you imagine a Venn diagram of the public being the biggest circle, and then a circle inside that being your friends that you're linked to on Instagram. And then within that, again, is a smaller group called your close friends list. So a close friends list is a list that you have added onto explicitly. So you've added people onto it on purpose, and certain images you can state as only being available for those close friends. So for some people, for example, how I personally use Instagram, because I use it as a bit of a brand for some of the public work that I do, I have a public account. Anyone searching for my name on the internet can see the images that I've opened up to the public, but I do have a close friends list that is only people that I've curated to be on that list, and certain images and videos are only available to those people. So in this particular case, that's what this example is about. We're exactly talking about a specific internet technology, and that there is a specific further protection technology, and that is what Hinemoa has used here. So what I'll do, you just staying there, just gonna chuck the thing back in the chat. Just gonna leave the screen sharing off for just a minute. I'd love some comments back from some of the people, from any of you that you discussed. So I'll just chuck the actual case study back in the chat. So apologies if you were still talking and all of those kinds of things. Yeah, I'm not gonna pick on anyone in particular, but if anyone wants to either unmute or just chuck in the chat if they're a bit shy of having their voice out there, let me know what some of the things that you were thinking about or discussed. I've just chucked into the chat the actual case study or the little story itself. And then I've just chucked in also the 3 kind of thinking points, but of course I realized that I didn't actually post the thinking points into the broadcast system, so sorry about that. Hopefully y'all took a screenshot of it, but you know. Yeah, Tina, that's right. Lack of trust of all friends. It's just like this idea that someone that you previously thought was someone that was, you know, your friend close to you, is someone that's gonna be the one that betrays you and actually do something that actively hurts you. Like I said, that's not a completely made up story. So that one was a real life story from a teacher in Australia. And in her particular case, it was really extra sad because they'd gone to the police when they discovered, and the police were like, we can't do anything. We have no idea who this could be. And it was only because some of those photos, she recognized that some of the poses may have come from close friends photos, that she then managed to track down that it was actually a colleague of someone her partner works with. And when they caught him and it was all come out in the court case, he didn't even really have a reason for doing it. So yeah. Nikki had some great ideas for point 2. A mix of digital and therapeutic options exist. Digital tools to get them taken down in person. That's right, exactly. There are a few things. While I said earlier that the law doesn't cover it, we will talk about just very quickly a few support things, including things like NetSafe and stuff, where you can get things taken down, hopefully. Sometimes it's a little bit scary. So for example, the series of articles I talked about earlier with Dylan Reeve at the spinoff, and he was saying that you know, even with like the might of, let's say, the National Party trying to get these Christopher Luxon posts taken down, and Meta just hasn't, because of the money they're earning from the advertisements. So you know, it's sometimes a little bit more difficult, but in case of, you know, probably underage pornography, you might have a little bit more luck. Affect your health and mental health, relationships with others. Yeah, relationships with others, you know, not being able to trust people then leads on to many different things in terms of the trust that you might have in intimate relationships in the future. Becomes a witch hunt to see. Yeah, exactly. And that's true as well. Like, it could be that the photos had been somehow shared in a different way, and then that was the way that that was the basis that they used to take that. The role of her friend being super important. Yeah, exactly. Really interesting to think about, you know, if we have friendship groups that aren't as supportive, what other kind of avenues of support might we need? Thanks. Cool. Yeah, we got that it was animal. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think Nikki's from the Light Project, so yeah, that really checks out. I'm gonna share just now just about 2 or 3 things that I found just online that that are support things. And then what we'll do is because we were meant to close off at 1:30, so I'll show that, and then we'll open it up for just a few minutes of questions. So let me just do that again and hit share. So just a few of the oops, sorry. Just a few of different things that we I found online that support avenues for parents here in Aotearoa. So the first and most obvious is NetSafe. It's an organization that has been around for over 25 years doing free support, advice, and education. What they've done in the last couple of years is created a tool for parents and caregivers. And in that site, there's lots and lots of information, and there are ways to report any kind of harmful content there, and that's something that you know, if anyone discovers anything, that might be your first port of call to see if you can get some kind of professional support in that way. I've personally worked with NetSafe in the past, and they have been usually very well. Actually, I've only worked with the education people, so I haven't worked with any of the frontline people. But in talking to the people that work in the education space, they do say that sometimes it's really harrowing, the stories they hear from their frontline people. So they are trained to work with these sort of sensitive cases in a really in a sensitive way, I should say. Earlier, that video I shared is from this amazing website called Keep It Real Online. It's got so much stuff. So as you can see from that little screenshot there, young people can click on the right, parents and educators on the left. So much information on there. Not all of it, or even some of it specifically on deepfakes, but it's about keeping yourself safe online. And in the young people section, I think it's still linked through there, is this amazing TV series they created with funding in New Zealand on air called The Eggplant. And that's a really, like, if there was any one thing that you want to take from this as a parent of a young person, is to watch these kinds of things with your kids. So the other one that I could suggest, which is not Aotearoa at all, is Sex Education with Gillian Anderson from England, I think. And that one there is this, oh no, I think it's an American show, but it's really good because, again, it shows these sort of sensitive topics in a fictional way. So that's the same with The Eggplant. The Eggplant is a 6-part miniseries. I'm pretty sure it's still available on TVNZ On Demand. And it's just this like short kind of way to discuss some of these topics without being really overly heavy-handed. So having these kinds of I guess hypothetical or fictional situations makes you one step removed from the actual issue itself. So it makes it a little bit easier maybe to discuss some of those things if you're discussing hypothetically about fictional characters, and it gives you an avenue as an adult to help people critically think about the different concepts and issues that might come up. And then the last one specifically for cybersecurity threats is CERT. I've used CERT myself to report things like spam emails and spam messages and things like that, or scam ones. Really helpful for other things as well. And they're actually running a big public campaign at the moment called Scamathon, I think. And it's all this kind of like really similar stuff that's about how to, I guess, put the real information out there and be helpful for people that just want to like help maybe some of the less technically able people in their lives. So I'm going to stop the share now, and then, oh, look, The Eggplant. Thank you, Jade. You've actually linked the entire series there. That's, yeah, New Zealand on screen. So it's really funny. It's so good. It's got Officer O'Leary from What We Do in the Shadows, which is that vampire show by Taika Waititi. And she's playing the principal of a small rural school. It's just, I liked it because each episode took on a different concept, and each one of those concepts was resolved at the end. So, you know, it is a fictional show, but it meant that in the very short movie, you could, short episode, you could really get into some of the things that might come out from there. Okay, so we have 2 minutes left. I've basically gone exactly on time. I'd love to see if anyone has any kind of burning large questions, age recommendations appropriate for an 8-year-old. I would say no. In terms of some of the content in the eggplant, it's done in a humorous way. There's nothing explicit, say, but it is really about sexual content. So for an 8-year-old, just a little bit not quite there yet. I would say maybe 12. Not like I know that in the previous stat, I was like, kids see porn from 13, but I would generally, as a parent, might be kind of leaving it to 11, 12, 13, kind of as they're getting into those teen years. There is about, in terms of what's real and what's not, there's an amazing thing about with polar bears, and when I remember it, I might chuck it into the resources later on. And I think it was might have been created by NetSafe, but it was a whole thing about how you think things are real or not. And it was I can't remember who created it, but Stan Walker was the narrator. So it's definitely a New Zealand thing. And it was amazing. And I definitely shared that with people of younger kids. And it was done in a cartoon. And it was, yeah, and there are things like that out there. And of course, NetSafe has re-released their Hector, which is again about internet safety and that kind of cyber safety kind of stuff as well. So that is a whole TV series with Hector the Dolphin as a main character. So those are a couple that might be more aimed at younger people. Cool. Yeah, you're right, Nikki. Possibly not. All right, so we're bang on 1:30 now. I'll hand back over to Craig to close us off. And yeah, thank you everyone for coming and joining me today.
Kia ora, everyone. Thank you so much, Vivian. Awesome session. It's something really to be thinking about. My sons are in their late 20s, and they already are concerned about the next generation that's coming through, and they were just they feel they're so fortunate not to have gone through that time with them. But of course, they'll start having kids soon too, so we'll have that whole generation to think of. So once again, I want to say thank you. We're building up a library of resources around use of AI. This is one about deepfakes. We've got another webinar coming up in December on Google Gemini. Really enjoying these conversations. Quite different, but wonderful. So I want to say thank you, Vivian, and thank you for all turning up today and being part of our session. So ka kite anō.